On today's Join Us in France, Elise and I take you to the lovely city of Lyon, and we also share some thoughts on how to choose a hotel room in France, and we also answer a listener's question about how French people like the healthcare system that we have here. Thank you for sending in a tip, Michael Groves and Stephanie Grace. Your support is appreciated. This is Join Us in France, episode 113. Hello, I'm Annie.
And you can tell I'm being chipper. I'm Elise.
And Join Us in France, well, you know, it's like edutainment about France.
Say that word again?
Edutainment.
Edutainment. Did you make that word up?
No, I did not make that word up. I don't know who did, but I didn't make it up. I saw it online and I thought, oh, that's exactly what Join Us in France is.
Yeah.
We tell people, educational things, but I hope we're entertaining.
I hope so. Did I do that gutturally? I don't know what's the matter with it. Shouldn't come and do these after eating lunch, I guess.
That's true. Normally we do this in the morning.
We do this in the morning. Yeah. And we're not sober.
Anyway.
Sober. Okay.
How are you, Elise?
I'm actually fine.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe we can say a couple of words about, I just did a tour yesterday with a couple named Terry and Stan who came to me through the Join Us in France podcast.
Very nice.
So that's thanks to us, to the podcast. Which
hello,
is very
hello.
Nice. Hello, hello. It's a season that starts being busy for me.
That's good.
With people coming to visit. The season here is very short, as you know. And also because I will be teaching a class in the history of French painting, which, as you know, is probably one of my two most favorite things in the world to talk about.
Yeah, you're really good at that.
So
excellent.
I'm
That's
busy.
Exciting. That's very exciting.
And looks like summer is about to come our way.
Oh yeah, I think summer is here. Summer is definitely here.
We had a wet spring.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go by today and whatever, it feels like we're about to hit the hot weather.
And I've been planning a 4-day trip to Paris. So that's short. And we have some constraints because we're meeting friends. Mm-hmm. And they're staying in a very posh place. Where
in the 8th?
No, Saint-Louis. Ile de Saint-Louis.
Oh, thank you very much.
I know. And we're not going to pay for that sort of accommodation. So I thought, well, okay, how am I going to do this so we can easily meet them, but not be so right in the center of Paris? And so I'm trying to discover Paris in a different way than I normally do, which is I decided we need to be on the metro line that goes right along Ile Saint-Louis, and that's line number 7. No, it's the 7.
Oh, the 7.
Yeah, and it's the pink line. And that one, so I went looking. I was like, okay, I need to find a hotel really close to a metro station on line 7.
Oh, I'm thinking of 1 and the 4, but the 7, where does it go to? I don't know the 7.
I don't remember the ends of the line.
Okay.
I think one end might be Gare de l'Est, and the other end, there's something called Maison Blanche, but that's not quite the end of the line.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, actually.
Anyway, so it's one of the longest lines on the Paris Metro.
It is.
It's like almost 20 kilometers. It's super long. Anyway, and it winds like north and south almost. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I found a hotel right next to that. But it was an ordeal to figure out how to do that, how to find a hotel next to
a metro line?
Next to a metro, metro
station.
A
stop. Yeah.
But I figured it out. If I might put that in a document somewhere. I might document that and make it easy for other people to do the same. Because I think that's really handy dandy. You know, if you're because in travel the most important thing is location.
Yes.
You know, if you're gonna. You could stay anywhere in Paris. There's millions of hotels.
Right.
Well, I exaggerate. But okay, there's a lot of hotels in Paris. But if you're going to be spending, a long time in transportation, anytime you need to go anywhere, it's kind of a pain. It's a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, my attitude is, unless you're in a place for a very long time, I would just as soon, if I have to, pay a little bit more and be close to the city center, so that I don't lose 2 to 3 hours a day traveling in and out. That's because that. But you're right. Paris has hotels everywhere.
Right.
Every arrondissement has hotels.
Right.
And there are 20 metro lines.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you are on the outer edge of the city, you're not going to take more almost than maybe a half an hour to get anywhere. And, you might have to change or something like that.
And that's what I was trying to avoid, is a change.
Change, right.
Because sometimes the changes are really quick and really
sometimes
fast.
They're very, very long.
Sometimes it takes forever.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you can walk literally a kilometer underground.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to avoid. And I think I figured it out, and I will probably put that together in a document to share with the listeners, because I think it's an effective way. The other constraint we have is we might take our dog. And so we had to go with a hotel that we know takes
animals,
dogs. Yeah. And the ones in France that always do that is the Ibis chain. So I wanted an Ibis or Ibis Styles, which is a little better. Anyway, I figured it out, but it was harder than I figured.
There's the other way of doing it, in a way, is if you have a map of the metro stops, and then when you go online, first of all, which arrondissement each of the stops is in. And then you can basically, when you go online for booking hotels, especially for Paris, with the big booking services, they will ask you for Paris, which arrondissement. Mm-hmm. So you can actually choose an arrondissement and then see how close it is to a metro stop.
And actually, Booking.com,
they do that.
They make it easy to see a map and all that.
Right.
But they don't make it easy to overlay public transportation on top of the map.
No, that's why. That's the kind of thing. Then, of course, you have to. I find that people's notion of how close things are is very relative to how much they walk, because somebody will say something is really close by and another person will say, oh, it took us a long time to walk there.
Exactly.
And so that's very subjective, but you're right. It's very good to be near a metro station.
Right.
Because then you really have immediate access to wherever, because the system is very, very good.
Right. It's like this one time, Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, we booked a hotel that was like 1.5 kilometers from the center of the town. And I thought, that's not a big deal. Yeah, well, it was really steep.
Oh, you did it by foot.
Well, I thought we would just park at the hotel and then walk in and out of town, but it was way steep.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, jeez.
Yeah. Those are things you have to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
I find that as a good note, a heads up, is in the comments people write. I'm so used to reading the comments on different sites like Booking and all of that. Mm-hmm. You know what your priorities are.
Right.
You know which are the things that are going to be the red light things for you that you don't want. So you pay attention to see if those come up as comments.
Right. But it's such a time sink reading all of these comments. It takes
read the most. I'd say read the 10 most recent. That's a good judge.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good one. And of course, there should be recent, like in the last 4 or 5 months.
Right. Otherwise, it's really not that meaningful.
Right.
Yeah.
But.
Okay. So another thing I wanted to do before we get started on our podcast about Lyon today is I wanted to Lyon.
She's crazy this afternoon.
Do you know what the lion says in French?
No.
Roi.
That's why he's the king.
R-O-H. No, R-O-A-H.
Oh.
I had to look this up recently, and I was like, what? So the lion in English roars.
You're right.
It's much better. Roar.
Roar, yeah.
Yeah. Roi. That's
but that makes him the roi.
That's true. The roi des bêtes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. So I want to also answer a question from Janet Stafford Myers. Sorry. Janet, hi. Okay, she says, how do French people feel about their healthcare system? Are employees divided between salaries and hourly and part-time as we are in the U.S.? Okay, let me answer that question first. No, we're not. After a few trips to Paris, which city should be next on my list? Okay, that's a
totally separate question.
And then she says, I need good public transportation and I want lots of street life.
Yeah, I saw the answers you gave. I wouldn't give the same ones, but that's okay.
So what would you say?
I would have said Toulouse and Bordeaux.
Oh, really?
Yeah. First of all, you have developed a more of an affection for Montpellier than I have, it's fine. But Toulouse really has a lot of nightlife. Lyon, of course, we'll talk about Lyon, which is bigger. But the rest of your answer, I think, was correct, which is any of the big cities in France has a city center that has nightlife. That's the way it is, you know. And
if there's students and it's a big city, it's going to be
all the
nightlife.
major university cities: Rennes, Nantes, Bordeaux, Lyon, Toulouse, Montpellier, Strasbourg, all have city centers.
I would avoid Marseille for nightlife.
Yeah, I would too. Did I say Marseille?
No, you didn't.
No.
Because I think Marseille might have nightlife that could easily go sour.
No, I don't
know.
think it's for that reason. I think the thing about Marseille, which is a city I know, I'd say medium well, is that it's enormous, physically enormous, and it's very dispersed. So the most of the other cities are really cities that have a genuine city center, and Marseille doesn't. I mean, it has the old port. It has some interesting touristy things down by the old port. But if you're really talking about nightlife, the truth is, I'm not even sure where you find it in a city like Marseille, because it's a city that's really a city turned towards the ocean and the beaches and things like that. And there are a few theaters and stuff like that, but they're much more scattered. There's not really a nice center that you can walk around. And there are parts of it that are not places you want to walk around. There are parts of it that are fine. Yeah. But I wouldn't have thought of it particularly as a city that has a good local centralized nightlife where you can walk around. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about her question about healthcare.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a complicated issue, but you're asking if French people are happy with their healthcare. In general, yes.
Yes, and I think I would like to make a comment, because I think that the question needs to be elucidated in terms of the question is in reference to what, because I absolutely agree with you. You know, you and I are both people who are transatlantic and have lived long enough on both sides of the Atlantic to have a good sense of what these systems are like. The French system is a universal healthcare system. It means that everybody has coverage if you have employment, and even if you don't have employment, they guarantee you a minimum amount of healthcare coverage anyway. When people who are French, and I'm very clearly saying when people who are French, this is my point of view, here complain about the system, it's on a level that has nothing to do with what an American could possibly understand, because what people complain about here is that there's an augmentation maybe of 1 or 2 euros for basic general visits, or because doctors are cutting back on their hours, or because
maybe some medication that used to be reimbursed is not anymore.
But what we're talking about is like nothing. It's like piddly stuff compared to the way the American system works. Here, the system is not complicated. There are doctors who are allowed to choose, if they're specialists particularly, to not be what they call here conventionnés, which means that they're out of the system. It means you pay out of pocket and you're not going to get reimbursed, because here people have basic health care. But that doesn't cover the majority of the doctors.
That's a small number.
It's a very small number. Yeah. So, in fact, and here the other thing is, and this is from the point of view of being an American who lives here, in France, going to a public teaching hospital is the best care you can get. There are good private clinics, but it's not like in the States where if you go to a public hospital, there's a sense of that being a place you don't want to go. Yeah. Whereas here, you do. Like
the basic idea of the French system is that the health care is private, but the health insurance is a public thing. So when you're a student in France, or when you're self-employed, or when you're employed, or even when you're officially unemployed, you participate in this big thing called sécurité sociale, social security. Right. That covers about 70% of all your medical expenditures. The other thing that this massive health insurance does is that it has the ability to tell doctors, no, you may not charge more than X for this or that.
Right.
So when you go see a doctor in France, even if you're an American who's on a visit, most likely if you do an office visit, the doctor will ask you for 23 euros. That's the basic rate, and that's what they charge anybody who comes into their office.
Right.
Now, if you have the insurance card, the green insurance card that we have called Carte Vitale, then 70% of this 23 euros is going to be reimbursed. And then if you have a top-up insurance, which most people who work do, then most of the rest of the 23 euros is also going to be reimbursed. So in the end, going to the doctors will cost you maybe €1 or 2.
Right.
Okay. But it's not like England, where in England you're supposed to go to the doctor that is practicing in your neighborhood.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. In France, you can go to any doctor
you can go to any doctor.
Want.
Right.
You just have to declare a general practitioner. But if you want to drive 100 miles to go see a practitioner, that's fine. You can do that. They cover a lot of other things more or less well. So if you need, we don't have chiropractors in France, but we do have osteopaths, which are kind of
if they're medical doctors, it's reimbursed, or if your complementary insurance covers it.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a complicated system.
But physical therapy is reimbursed.
Physical therapy
entirely.
Yes. So we have very good basic care. If you're gonna be hit with something like breast cancer or diabetes, they do an amazing job at treating people and at following up with people. I mean, we've had doctors call us at home to say, okay, is everything going well? How are you doing on your therapy or whatever? It's unbelievable how good they are.
The fact is the French system is really rated to be one of the best in the world, and it has a lot more of an emphasis, at least for certain things, like you mentioned, on preventive medicine, which is very good because in the end that lowers cost, you see. So catch something early. They have this here where we are, and we're in the Haute-Garonne, which is the number 31, and I get these things now because me and my husband we're at a certain age. Okay. Every 2 years you get free exams for all kinds of things. You get a free mammogram. I mean, you get all these free. They want to do preventive medicine. This is fabulous. You know, it really is fabulous.
If you do everything that they send you, and they send you letters to go do preventative dépistage, exactly. That means they want you to see if you have this issue or that issue.
Right.
I've had my dépistage for colon cancer for like 6 months. I haven't done it.
You will.
I just need to do it. I have the envelope.
You just need to do it.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. And the other thing is that they are at the forefront of certain kinds of research. Like here where we live, the cancer research is the best in the country, you see. So personally, I think the French system is really a great system.
Yeah.
Now, French people who have never lived anywhere else, they grumble because
they complain constantly.
They complain, and they think it's terrible because it's going to cost them a teeny little bit more.
Right.
But when, as you and I both know, the ridiculousness of the cost of medical care in the United States, which of course can be very good, but if you don't have a lot of money, never mind. You're not going to get that kind of care.
Right.
You know, I because of that, it makes me very impatient when I hear people grumbling about a little bit more, because the only other problem is, of course, that it is a huge cost for the government. As you say, it's private care, but publicly funded to a certain extent. When you put into the complementary insurance, it's money out of your own pocket.
Right.
Unless you have an employer that is a big employer who has a package deal for everybody in this place, which is fine when you do belong to an employment situation like that. Otherwise, you pay out of your own pocket.
Yep.
And then you have to decide whether it's worth it or not. If you're young, most people don't feel it's worth it.
But we have to mention numbers. I mean, supplemental insurance for the year in France, even if you're an older person and it will cost, you're probably going to get more visits. It's going to cost you what, $1,000 a year?
It costs me right now $90 a month.
There you go. So that's the top-up insurance.
Right.
Well, in America, there are people who pay $600 and $1,000 a month.
A month, I know.
A month.
I know.
For just basic health insurance. Right. So we, that's why it's true. I don't have very much patience with French people who complain, because most of the time it's because, like, there's this medicine that my doctor likes to prescribe whenever we have a cold or something, chest something. He prescribes this thing. It's a nasal spray. And it contains a little bit of steroids, and it kind of washes up. And anyway, they stopped reimbursing it. And so people complain that this thing cost them €3.50.
Right.
Which the doctor, he still likes to use it, but the National Health Insurance System, they've done a study, and they've decided, no, this doesn't shorten the number of days that people are sick, or it doesn't help them in any way. Let's not reimburse. And that's usually what it's based on. It's based on whether or not, it's effective.
I mean, let's face it, the basic serious medicines, the ones you use for cholesterol, heart, and all of those things, they're reimbursed.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah. Doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. I pay more for healthcare for my animals than I do for the people.
Yes. Well, yes, there is such a thing as I actually, from the days of my dear departed Kitty,
there is insurance.
There is insurance. It's private insurance.
Yeah.
But it costs a fortune. So in the end,
most people say, I'll just pay for the vet bill, and even veterinary medicine is cheaper in France.
Is it?
Oh yeah, by a lot. I was flabbergasted when we brought our Luna from the U.S. to France. She was young at the time, but just doing a office visit for shots and, a couple times a year just to check her out, it'd be like €50 or something. And over there, it'd be 200 or 300.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was a lot more money. And that was for a dog that was still young and well.
Right.
Now that she's older and she needs more help with various things,
The other thing, I'd like just to make another comment about all of this. It is extremely difficult, I think, for Americans, not Canadians, not Australians, but Americans, to understand that in France, medical coverage is not a political issue.
No, it's not.
It is absolutely not a political issue. Yeah. It does not matter whether you are Republican, Democratic, or further left or further right. No one questions the idea that people should have medical coverage. It is just not considered to be a political issue. I think that is the biggest difference, and it's something that maybe if people listening from the United States could understand, it doesn't become a question of why are we doing this. It is just a given that this is the right that everyone should have medical coverage, whether it's total 100% or at least 70%.
Right.
It's just out of the political game.
And also the whole idea of controlling cost.
Right.
And I know that in America, medical school costs a lot of money.
Insurance costs a lot of money.
Right. American doctors pay a lot of money for beautiful-looking offices. They have malpractice insurance. They have a lot of costs that French doctors don't have. Because my French doctor, the village doctor here, he has an extra couple of rooms built next to his house, and one is a waiting room, and the other is his, he has an office and an examination room. It's not very big. Probably the whole thing is, I don't know, maybe 500 square feet.
Yeah.
Altogether. He's the only person there. If you call his number, most of the time he answers the phone. Right. Once in a while he's with a patient and he clicks it over to an answering service. To book with him, you can either call him or you can do it online. I mean, they use modern things, but the reason why it's so cheap is because he only has to deal with one type of insurance.
That's right.
The national insurance. He submits, you give him your green card, and it has a chip on it that will talk to his computer, and his computer will bill directly and you get reimbursed. It's all automatic.
Yep.
With that one magic card with a chip on it. And you don't really need all these people doing staff, all this staff to do billing and to do research and do I qualify for this or that? No. In France, there are a few things don't get reimbursed. One of them is osteopath. There are a few things like dental stuff is not.
It's not
very
great.
well
it's
reimbursed.
Not very well.
But I mean.
But that's typical for some reason everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I think
they don't care whether people go blind and lose their teeth. You can be perfectly healthy.
Which is awful.
Which is really pretty awful.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes, overall, French people are happy with their healthcare system. The thing is, if you ask French people, they will bitterly complain about every little part of the healthcare system because they have no freaking idea how good they have it. Because they've never been outside of France. They just know that last month this nasal spray they like was free, and now they have to pay $3.50 for it. And by $3.50, I don't mean $350. I mean €3.50. Okay. The first time I was asked for $90 for a nasal spray in the U.S. because I had
infection.
Yeah, I had a sinus infection, and I'm so used to using nasal spray on account of this French doctor who always prescribes this. I was like, I want a nasal spray with steroids in it, and my doctor said, okay, he prescribed it. So I paid for an office visit. So this was $120 just for the office visit. I knew exactly what was wrong with me, but I couldn't get antibiotics and stuff without seeing a doctor. So I went to okay. And he writes down nasal spray, whatever. When I went to the pharmacy, he wanted like $40 for the antibiotics and $90 for the nasal spray. I was like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to take the nasal spray. I don't need it that badly. Here it's like out of pocket. It's $3.50.
Yeah, but it must have had some gold or something.
Yeah, probably there was something magical in that nasal spray.
Really, yeah.
I don't know what they were doing.
Nasal spray for $90. Okay, It's like,
anyway, at least we've been talking for half an hour already.
Yes, I know.
Terrible.
You are a gabber, Annie. I thought it was me the gabber. Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about Lyon, but let's not do too much history. Do the history quick.
No, I don't want to do the history quick. You're the one that wants to do the history quick because actually, no. I'll tell you what I did. Because we wanted to talk about Lyon and because you were just there recently and so you have some other things to talk about, and because to do Lyon in terms of the history, it either has to be very, very long and detailed, or this is what I did. I wrote the 6 most salient points in the history of Lyon.
Excellent.
How's that? You're going to give me a big fat kiss for this one, okay?
Yes, I love that.
But before that, how about just some statistics, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right. Lyon is actually considered to be it's very strange. It's considered to be the 3rd largest metropolitan area in France, Marseille being the 2nd. But the city of Lyon is only about 500,000, but the whole metropolitan area of Lyon is, to my great surprise, 2.3 million, which is very, very big.
Yeah.
Which is, for France, very, very big.
It is.
Okay? It is. We have to keep in mind, everybody out there, that the metropolitan area around Paris has 20% of the French population. And that rest of the country includes many, many, many small, medium, and a little bit bigger than medium-sized cities. So the biggies are really Paris, Lyon, and Marseille.
Yes.
And afterwards, you get to the category where basically Toulouse is, which is the cities that are in the 500,000 category.
More or less.
Which is really considered in France to be a big city.
Yeah.
So it's big. And it's also very centrally located because it is basically, it's a city that's on where the 2 rivers, the Saône and the Rhône, which sound the same but are spelled differently.
Le Rhône et la Saône.
The Rhône in the French. In English, it would be the Rhône and the Saône.
Yes.
Yes. But anyway.
Attends, c'est la Saône. S-A-N?
S-A-O-N-E.
Okay,
Saône.
La Saône.
And the Rhône.
Parce qu'on a aussi la Somme.
Yes, which is much further. No. Yeah. This is where they join up. And then, of course, so it has very important waterways. It's bounded on the east, not very far from it, by the Alps.
Yep.
And on the west, once you cross over the rivers, you come to the very beautiful Massif Central, which is the Central Mountains, which are the oldest mountains in
They're
France.
old.
They're old. Parts of them are volcanic, but they're like the Appalachians in the States. They're the oldest mountains.
Big round hills.
Well, some of them go up to about 4,000 feet, 4,500 feet. They're really mountains. It's just, they happen to be the coldest mountains in France.
That's true.
But they are not the highest, of course.
And it actually snows every winter over there.
Yes, it's the coldest part of the country. Yeah. It really is, because it catches all the water. Anyway, so Lyon has a central and strategic place geographically in France. If you follow the Rhone River and the Rhone Valley, you come down to Marseille and the Mediterranean. If you go all the way up north, due north, you come to Alsace, Strasbourg, and if you go crisscrossing, you're into the mountains. So it has a lot of these things all the way around it, which made it, from the very beginning, a very crucial place. And that's the way the history of Lyon started. So if we have our 6 basic facts, the most important, as far as I'm concerned, because I prefer the older the better, is that it was the capital of Roman Gaul. This is the big capital, okay, of the Gauls, but then of the Roman Empire, which became Roman Gaul, okay. So there were,
Paris wasn't the capital.
Oh, Paris was a nothing. I mean, we're talking about Romans. We're talking about, at the time of the Romans, Paris was a piddly little fishing port. I mean, it had no importance whatsoever. Okay. I mean, it was just like, Paris has no importance? No, Paris was not important. No, because the Romans arrived in what is now France from the Mediterranean.
Right.
And what did they do? Of course, they went up the Rhone Valley.
Yeah, that's the easy way.
And that's the easy way. And they had actually, I think it was actually thanks to Hannibal. I'm not sure when Hannibal and the Carthaginians were around. But anyway, it was way back then, before BC. And so there was actually a route that had been carved out going east-west across the Alps. Mm-hmm. And the Romans, basically, what they did, the first thing whenever they came to a new territory that they wanted to basically control, they built roads. They were the builders, right?
Yeah.
So they built the Roman way. And the Roman way literally starts at the Mediterranean, goes all the way up the Rhone Valley. And why? I'm not really sure. But they decided that the spot where Lyon, the city now is, was the perfect spot to make their big intersection settlement. And so the Roman legions set up there. And in 43 BC, it became the official capital of Caesar, came to France and conquered most of what he called the Gaul. I mean, the Gaul is the name that the Romans gave to this area. I mean, it was the Celtic tribes that lived everywhere. Anyway, one of his generals was given the charge of developing this area. Mm-hmm. It was a very good administration they had. It was like, you take this, you take that.
Yeah.
And so they named it Lugdunum.
Say that again?
Lugdunum.
Lugdunum.
Yeah. I'm not sure where the accent is supposed to be. It's 3 syllables. Why? I just found this out doing the research for this. Is really, this is what I love. Well, Lug, L-U-G, was the name of one of the main Celtic gods.
Oh. Obviously.
Okay.
Yes.
So they used, because they were very clever, they took the name of something from the Celts and they made this. It had a longer Latin name. Don't ask me because I didn't write the whole thing down. It had 4 big Latin words. And the last one was Lugdunum.
Okay.
Which basically meant, the empire center, capital of the Gauls. Here we are. We're in Lugdunum. Right?
Okay. Nice.
And just to give you an idea, because I copied this down again this morning. This is what happened with the name. Lugdunum, which was Latin, eventually got turned into Lugdum.
Yeah.
Lugdum got turned into Lydum.
Yes.
And in the 1200s, Lyon became Lyon.
Oh, well.
So there you are.
And Lyon, I mean, it sounds like the lion.
It sounds like the lion, but it has nothing to do with lions. It has to do with the Lugdunum, right?
There you
go.
go.
So it was really super. It was the richest, biggest, most important city in all of Gaul under the Roman Empire.
Interesting.
So this is number 1 in terms of the super most important, long time ago golden age. That was really a big deal. And then we'll skip through a lot of the other stuff, except that it's important to know that for the first 1,000 years of BC, of after Christ, It was a major Christian center. That is, it was not just that the area around there was Christianized. It was a place where there were lots of bishops and lots of what they called scriptorium, where they wrote the books, by hand on these beautiful pieces of skin.
Yeah.
And it was a religious center more than an economic center. So it went from the Roman times, when it was both a military and economic and big power, to being basically a religious center with no particular, I'm not sure if there's obviously details.
But they were Catholic, right?
Always Catholic. Okay. Whenever we're talking about anything up to the 16th century, up to the 1500s, Christian is strictly 100% only Roman Catholic.
Well, not in the Southwest.
Yes.
Well, in the Southwest, you had the
Qatar, but
Qatar.
the Qatar was such a,
and the Protestants.
It was a really a parenthesis in a sense.
Yeah.
And they were wiped out.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and then in the 1500s we get the Protestants, and then it changes everything.
Yeah.
But then what happens is the second most important time period in the history of Lyon is, in fact, the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for a couple of really cool reasons. And that is because Lyon was given the chance to have 4 of these famous medieval fairs. And in the Middle Ages, it was the king or the ruling count or duke or whoever it was that gave a city permission to have a fair. And a fair meant money coming in, because a fair was a big deal. And it was like, imagine an international fair that we have now, except now it tends to be more food and stuff like that than anything else, But in those days, you'd get people coming from even the Middle East with spices, people from as far away as Asia Minor with silk, people coming from all over, and people waited for those fairs because this was the huge place of trade, and it made Lyon super rich, and it became the center for silk making. And it still is the center in France for silk making. But that was introduced there through one of these fairs, obviously coming through northern Italy from China, and it became famous for 3 things: silk making, banking. And the banking is from the northern Italians, the Lombards, who were the most important bankers. And they came and set up, in the Middle Ages, there were 37 different banks in Lyon.
Wow.
But
there's probably more than that now.
Yeah, but there were 37 different, not just branches, but like 37 different ones. And the other thing, which I thought was really neat, because I didn't know, it became the center of printing. When the Gutenberg press was invented, the first press was set up in Lyon.
Interesting.
And they had paper mills because of the river, because of the water on the rivers. It became one of the first places to make paper and do printing. And so for over 100 years, in the time of the Renaissance, it was really the golden age of Lyon. And it was apparently, for those reasons, extremely sophisticated, because you had people coming from all over Europe, including far Eastern Europe, really, to do all the trading. And I thought it was really kind of neat, because what happened was, talking about the Protestants and the Catholics, we know that in the 1500s there was a war of religion in France, and the Protestants were basically, a lot of them were kicked out of France.
Yeah.
And in the case of Lyon, which had been a majority Catholic city, but which had a lot of people involved in banking and printing who were Protestant, guess where they went? They went across the Alps to Switzerland.
Oh.
Ha ha.
That explains
a lot. Yeah. That's why the best art books in the world are still made in Switzerland, really. And that's where all the banks are. And it's because of that. Because otherwise they would not have been there. It would have been yodelers up there with their cows up in the mountains, Anyway, after the Renaissance, there's a long period where we can say pretty much not much happens.
Okay.
And then we come, believe it or not, to the Revolution, which is taking us already up to the end of the 18th, the beginning of the 19th century.
Yes.
And it was a very loyalist city. So it was demolished by the revolutionary forces. Totally, apparently, pretty much. They didn't destroy all the buildings, but they really punished the people a lot in Lyon for being conservative. And they weren't necessarily monarchists, apparently, but they just were not for the revolution. And along comes Napoleon Bonaparte.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bonaparte was very much involved in moving things up and down the Rhone. His armies, he would go across the Alps. And so he apparently visited Lyon several times and decided that it would be good to introduce all of these industries that had basically disappeared. So at the beginning of the 1800s, he reintroduced the silk industry, which had literally disappeared. He reintroduced the printing, which had really gone across to Switzerland.
Yeah.
And so, strangely enough, it's thanks to him that all that picked up, and the 19th century was the century for Lyon. And a Mr. Jacquard, Jacquard, I used to weave, so I know about all this stuff. Jacquard is a kind of weave.
Yes.
He was a Mr. Jacquard. He invented a special loom, and it made Lyon the center so that all the rich families all over Europe, all the royalty and everybody wanted to have the textiles that were made in Lyon. And to this day, it is a center for high-end. I was just watching on television 2 nights ago. It is still the center for the most expensive silks made anywhere outside of China. And the most high-end fabrics that are made on these incredible looms. So that was really the 19th century. And then, of course, the main thing now is that it's probably the most high-tech industrialized city of all of France, because along the river, just on the outskirts, we have all the major pharmaceutical companies, all the biogenetic companies, so all the high-tech stuff that goes on there, which means that since World War II, it has expanded enormously, because I have no idea, to be honest, what the population was. And the other thing that I find very interesting is that it was the home of the Frères Lumière.
Yes.
And the Frères Lumière are the two brothers, whose names were Mr. and Mr. Light. I love it.
Yes.
And they invented movies. They actually were photographers. They were photographers, and what they did was they were the first ones to make sequences that they projected in a way that it created animation. And in 1895, their first films were projected not in Lyon, but in Paris. But they were from Lyon, and so, of course, Lyon pays great homage to the fact that cinema really was invented in the city of Lyon.
Very nice.
And the only other thing I'd like to mention, because it is important today, is that during World War II, Lyon was, for a while, until 1943, part of what we call the Free Zone. It wasn't occupied at first by the Germans, and that, of course, it has to do with the way the Germans occupied it in a strange oblique way across the country.
Diagonally.
And because it was not occupied by the Germans, and because it was close to the mountains, and it was also possible to get down to the Mediterranean by virtue of the river, it became the absolute nevralgic center for all resistance work. And it was very, very, very important for creating all these different resistance groups that then went on to work in different places. And when de Gaulle, who was in London, had to have a leader to what he wanted to do was unite all the various and not always harmonious different resistance groups, he picked on the man who was the symbol for him of the idea of uniting resistance, and that was Jean Moulin. And Jean Moulin was a préfet. You can explain better than I can exactly what. It's an administrator who's also a cop, basically.
Yeah, c'est le préfet de police. It's something that comes from Napoleon. Napoleon had these appointed préfet de police, which kind of answered to him directly. And they're not elected. They're
chosen.
They're appointed still to this day.
But they're both administrators and head of the police.
They were, but not so much now.
Not so much now.
Not so much now. But it's. I haven't studied this in a long time, so I'm going from my memory. I might be saying things that are incorrect. But préfet today has to do with, they organize all these things that have to do with car registrations.
That's a préfecture.
Right. Well, la préfecture, c'est le bureau du préfet.
But the préfet, my understanding, because watching news in French and everything, when there's a major bad event and the police are all out, the person that addresses the public is the préfet.
Yes. Le préfet is going to speak on behalf. It's the coordinator of both. If there's a natural disaster,
right,
they are in charge of coordinating rescue and so forth. But they also are the ones that issue permissions
Right.
for all sorts of
All your legal papers.
all legal papers. They also organize all these all associations are all under the jurisdiction of the préfet. Each department has one. It's kind of an honorific thing. If you go to the ENA, l'École nationale d'administration in France, well, a lot of the people who don't become famous politicians then go on to be préfet somewhere, and it's
It seems to be a fairly important job, though.
Yeah, it is an important job.
Yeah.
They do have they have a big role in everyday French life, but I can't really.
That's why when de Gaulle wanted to choose somebody, he chose Jean Moulin, who in fact was at the time the youngest préfet ever, because he was only 40, and also because he was someone who stood up to the Germans and didn't obey the Vichy government. And he has now, he's in France very famous as being one of the great martyrs of the resistance for World War II. But there is a real association of Lyon and the resistance from World War II, which city is still very, very proud of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when I was in Lyon recently, we visited a few places. We did a guided tour of the city center of Lyon. Lyon has this massive tourist office on one of the big plazas.
It's called the Bellecour.
Bellecour, exactly. And in the massive tourist office, you actually have to take a ticket before you can talk to somebody. Yeah. It is humongo, and they organize hundreds of tours. And I was with a big group, and I was distracted, and I was taking pictures, and so I didn't really listen to what the tour guide was saying. But we went through a lot of these traboules.
Traboules, yeah.
So what those are, it's kind of a big deal in Lyon, but it's silly, really, because what it is you have Lyon, the way the city is organized, you have a lot of streets that are parallel, but they don't have an intersection, intercentric street. So they build these long rectangular blocks that can be, a long, long way. And so they had to find a way to go across to the next street parallel. So the traboules it's in between buildings. It's like a hallway.
It's a passageway, isn't it?
It's a passageway, like yes.
Almost like what you have in Paris, really. Because you have a lot of those passageways in Paris.
Yes. It's a passageway that lets you, instead of going all the way around the block, which might be a kilometer or more, you can go through. The thing is, some of them are private, and some of them are public. The reason why they're public is because when the building is owned by HLM, which is in France, it's the
public housing.
It is public housing, yes. Because it's public housing, they have to let people through. But of course, it's a huge hassle for the people who live there because it's loud. I mean, you have like a herd of tourists every 5 minutes going through and talking loud and taking pictures and all this. I don't know how they put up with this, but it's maintained very nicely. Once you're inside of the hall, so some parts of this hall, these halls, traboules, are really narrow and dark. And then all of a sudden it opens into a courtyard, and then you might have another piece of dark hall. It's lovely, but it's just a hall. I mean,
architecturally, they're not that interesting.
Well, some of them are. They have these really nice towers, like tall towers. They had a lot of vanity type of towers,
like Toulouse.
Like Toulouse does, yes.
But made out of stone, I suppose, not out of brick.
Yes, it's stone, and sometimes it's there's colored stucco. Some of the prettiest ones are this pink colored stucco. It's really nice, and I'll put some pictures on the website on jeunessinfrance.com. I thought it was lovely, but unfortunately I was very distracted. So I'm sure I would have gotten more out of the visit if I hadn't been.
Let me ask you something, because one of the things I was reading about, I was in Lyon about 5 years ago and spent a day there. So again, I'm not a super expert on it in that sense, but I walked around some of the older areas, the Fourvière and the area, the Croix-Rousse and all of that.
Yes.
one of the things that I've read in several different of the things I was looking at says that the old city center, which is the part that's lower down, that's basically that section that's in between the two rivers.
Yes.
Is one of the largest collection of medieval and Renaissance houses anywhere, and I don't remember that much of it.
It doesn't really. You don't have a lot of half-timbered houses, for instance. I think they've covered up the timbering, and so you can't really see. They're probably old like that.
Yeah.
Yes, but you don't really see a lot. And also Renaissance stuff. We took a tour. So the second day, we were there for 4 days, but we were occupied with other stuff some of the time. So we did touristy stuff 2 days. And the second tour we did was of Hôtel Particulier de Lyon. And actually, the first thing the lady told us is that what's interesting about Lyon is that the Hôtel Particulier are not that impressive.
Which means a mansion, by the way, out there.
Yeah, Hôtel Particulier is a
really
mansion.
Basically a mansion.
Yeah. Well, they really don't look like much.
Really?
Yeah, they look like a house.
Huh.
I mean, they were large, and they had, wealthy furnishings and all that goes with it. But from the outside, they don't look that different from the other houses, So I thought, that's kind of interesting. But the city has a lot of charm, especially at night, because you have these two rivers and you can walk along the paths, along the river. They have a lot of restaurants and food establishments. I think a lot of when you go to Lyon, you have to eat at un bouchon de Lyon, which...
So now I need to explain what that is. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, bouchon to me is the equivalent of what we here call a brasserie, except that it specializes in the two things that they're fancier. Mm-hmm. And it's quenelle, which is one of the specialties, and sausage.
Yes.
And as you said the other day, lots of pork.
Lots of pork.
Lots of pork. And the quenelle seemed to be one of the dishes that is associated with eating in Lyon. Lyon is a place that is associated with food.
Yes. So les quenelles de brochet is one of the typical ones.
And brochet is
it's a
pike.
Fish.
Pike.
Okay. They don't taste fishy at all. There's hardly any fish in it, really. It's quenelle is like a sausage, but it's a lot of
like
bread.
A dumpling.
Yeah, it's like a bready sausage. The texture is very interesting. It's very fine. It has a mild flavor, and it's usually served in a nice sauce. Creamy sauce.
With
usually.
the wine sauce, right? Isn't it? Does it have a little wine in it?
Maybe some of them did, but they were creamy sauce.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So we ate at 2 of these Bouchon Lyonnais restaurants. The first one was recommended by the hotel, and I'll put the address on Journalists in France. I don't have it with me. I have their card and everything. You pay between 35 and 50.
Oh, that much?
Yeah, for a nice dinner. If you pay 50, it includes a glass of different wines. The people next to us had paid for the expensive dinner. We got the 35 and they got the 50.
So what do you get for that much money?
Oh, you get a lot of little things. So when we arrived, they brought these crackers with it had a sour cream spread that you could put on, and friton. Friton, I have to tell you, is one of the most vile things I have ever put in my mouth. It is fried fat.
It's what you're saying something. There are people in the South that eat that. It's fried pork fat or pork rind. That's what it is.
It is.
Some people
vile.
think it's a delicacy.
It is vile.
It's crunchy. It's crunchy.
Yeah. I had to put one in my mouth because I had to try, but oh no, not for me. Then, so we were off to a bad start, but the rest got much better. Then they served us. I can't remember everything.
Don't they do a lot of mushroom things?
We didn't have any mushrooms.
You didn't have any mushrooms?
No. But it was one of these restaurants where they serve you small portions. And
tasting portions.
A bit more than tasting, but you're not gonna walk out having busted a chop or anything. You're like, oh, well, this was pleasant, but it wasn't super lots and lots and lots. Although, if we had taken the more expensive dinner that included more stuff and more wine, it would have been like, oh, that would have been too much, I think. But they serve a lot of sausages. They also do this andouillette thing, which is another vile food. I'm sorry. There are probably people who love it, but it's like...
It's very strong, smelling and tasting.
Yeah, it's intestines.
It's rolled intestines.
It's disgusting. It's,
It's a traditional, for those of you out there listening to us, believe it or not, there are actually millions of people who think this is wonderful food. So,
Yeah, I'm sure there are people who love it.
I mean, that's why people go to Lyon for eating these things.
Yeah, no, not for me. And so, nobody around us was eating it, which is...
It's very strong.
Yeah, it would smell really strongly.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I go to Catalonia, they have a similar dish that's also a delicacy. And I'm like, oh, no. Everything they served us was accompanied by cream.
Yeah.
Very nice tasting cream.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
So it's butter and cream a lot.
Yeah.
The salade lyonnaise, the second night we went to a restaurant that was actually right by the big basilica on top. What's it called? You said it earlier.
I did say it. It wasn't Saint Etienne?
No, the basilica, it'll come back to me. Right next to that, there was one restaurant, and that was a lovely experience because we had a beautiful view onto the city. We arrived about 7 p.m.
Oh, the Croix-Rousse.
Non, c'était pas la Croix-Rousse, c'était l'autre. La basilica
is
what's it called? La Fourvière.
Fourvière. That's the name of the neighborhood.
Well, it's a basilica. Basilica is called La Fourvière.
Oh, but also the neighborhood.
Oh, okay. So it's right up on top of this hill, and we had
it's really super up there.
Yeah, and you have le crémaillère. No, the like a metro, but it's
a funicular.
Funicular. I can't find my words today. So you have this funicular that's part of the metro system. Mm-hmm. So you just get a ticket. I think it's $2.50 to go up there. It's way better than hoofing it up there. And you can visit this basilica. It's gorgeous. I mean, the inside is very ornated, and I got some pictures. Although I didn't have my big camera I only had a basic camera with me, so the photos inside are not as good as what I can get with a big camera. But hey, I didn't want to carry the whole shebang with me the whole time. So right up next to that cathedral is a restaurant, and that was lovely because we waited for nightfall, and you get this beautiful view.
Yeah, because that's the other thing we didn't mention. Part of the city is down below. Part of it is beautiful hills.
Yes, it's hilly, and the food there was very nice. I had a salade lyonnaise, which I highly recommend. It was still pork because it has
potatoes,
bacon
too,
bits.
Right?
Yeah, potatoes and bacon, but that was really nice. I enjoyed that. I had another quenelle, which was again very nice. Quenelle to me is nice because it has this mild flavor, and
it's made with eggs, breadcrumbs, and then the ones that are made out of fish. It's mixed together, and it's light because I think they use egg whites. Mm-hmm. So it gives it a very light texture to it.
Yeah. I thought that was a really pleasant food. I think that's not... I mean, if you're going to order something local, that would probably not shock any American. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend that, right. And the salade lyonnaise was also very, very good, and it had a poached egg on top as well. I thought it was very nice. Their desserts, so they have these typical cheeses. One was called, what was it called? I should take notes on these things. I eat them and then I forget.
I don't know what the local cheeses are, but while you're looking for that, the wines there would be the Côte du Rhône.
Oh, Côte du Rhône, yes,
right?
Yes.
They will obviously have wines that come from Burgundy and Dijon, which is a bit further up river up north, but right around there you have lots of lovely reds that are medium body reds, so they're not too heavy, and those are the Côte de Rhône, and they're very, very nice.
Yeah.
You know.
So they have, it was called Cervelle de Canut is the one.
Is it cheese?
It's a cheese. It's like a spread or something. It's the brain of the silk worker.
Yeah.
It's a base of fromage blanc.
Ah.
With chopped herbs and shallots and salt and...
That sounds good.
It was really good. Yeah, that was the spread I was telling you about. The stuff that they served with disgusting friton. Yeah. The other thing that's very typical of up there is the rosette lyonnaise, which is a salami type, but it's a very distinctive flavor. It's very nice. That's something I could eat. Le coq au vin is also apparently from Lyon.
To be Lyon?
Yes.
Oh, I would have thought just Burgundy in general. That's interesting.
Yeah, they have a thing called gras double, which is awful. It's tripe cooked with onions.
Like in Auvergne, they have tripe too, called tripou.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
let's go to the. Are there any nice desserts?
Wait. Oh, marron glacé is from Lyon.
Oh, really?
Marron glacé, I think, very nice. They're candied chestnuts.
Candied chestnuts.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. La salade lyonnaise, which I mentioned before. Coussin de Lyon. I don't even know what that is.
I think it's like a beignet, isn't it?
Oh, could be. Cardoon, so that's les blettes au gratin.
Oh, that's good.
That's really good.
Blette is Swiss chard.
Yes, Swiss chard, and they do gratin around it. I love that. And you can also make it.
You know what I'm thinking, though, as I'm listening to you, because it's true that you had more of a recent involvement with the food there. Lyon is considered to be a city of the south of France. Technically, it's southeast, even though it's
It's center France.
But if you read in the books, it'll say it's south. And yet, the cuisine is very much northern cuisine because it's so much based on cream. And in France, the cooking of the north is really based on butter and cream. And the cooking in the south is really much more olive oil and garlic and tomatoes.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting that has so much cream in all of the dishes.
Oh, it was cream, everything cream.
Yeah. Because they have cold winters, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Then they have the quenelle, obviously, the Lyon, les pommes de terre lyonnaises. So it's like gratin potatoes, you know. Something called sabodé, which I have not tried. I don't know anything about it. And you know, various things like that. But overall, I thought the food was good, but I would get real tired of it because it's really rich and a lot of pork. I mean, it's like everywhere was pork. But I'm sure, you know, we're only there for a few days. And some of these days we weren't going out to eat. So it's hard to know what really, in 2 days you don't get enough. The wine was excellent. They have excellent wines down there. They're light, you know, light-bodied. Unlike the Corbière, which I usually like. Yeah,
the Côte de Rhônes they're definitely lighter. They're very nice, though. They're very nice.
So I thought overall, Lyon was a lovely place. And so we had an adventure. I have mentioned Igor, the guide dog, and the person that he guides, Nicholas. So they were with us, and we go up to the Fourvière using the tram, whatever it's called. And we had dinner. We took pictures. Oh, they have this beautiful bronze casting of the city of Lyon, which we spent a good long time there because there was a blind man with us, and so he was touching everything and, you know, getting the lay of the land. And it was really touching because so many people came up to us and wanted to talk to him because there was writing in Braille on both sides, but it was just Braille. And so the sighted people had no idea what it says. So people were asking him, you know, what does it say, whatever. It was really good. It was really nice to see him understand this stuff better than the rest of us. Because typically when you can't see, it's hard to get around, you know. I
think so, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they were with us. And so after dinner, we go back to get on the train to go back down, and it was closed. The train closes at like 9 or something. And so we had to walk down. Okay, so this was funny because the blind guy didn't think this was difficult because, I mean, obviously it was dark. So when you're at the top of the hill, you still have the glow from the cathedral, from the basilica, because it's so well lit that it lights the path down. But as you get lower and lower, you know, you can't see bloody much. So my husband was lighting the way with his cell phone so the guide dog could see where he was going. And so I could see where I was going, but the blind guy was all like, walking down the hill like it was nothing. But I wasn't comfortable, it's not like something we do, walking in the dark.
Yeah, and that's a very steep part of the city.
Yes, it is steep, and the stairs are kind of uneven, so you have steps of different heights and different lengths, and blind guy was handling all this beautifully, and it reminded yet again that, he's well adjusted for the stuff he does, and as soon as we get put in that situation where we can't see where we're going, we're like freaking out.
Yeah. Let me just, you just reminded me, talking about the hills and talking about walking around with Nicolas and Igor, that obviously has to do with sight and light, but one of the most famous events in Lyon is an annual light show.
Yes.
That goes on for 3 or 4 days and attracts 3 or 4 million people every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they do illuminations on all the major buildings in the historical area, both at the Fort Vière, which is up above, and down below in the old city. And I've never been, but I know a couple of people who've been there, and they say that it's really fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
It's very packed with people. It's kind of like going to the Christmas market in Strasbourg. And it's really, really packed.
And I think it's early December, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because this year, unfortunately, it was canceled because of the events in Paris in November.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to take a chance on it.
Overall, Lyon gave me the impression of a lovely city that I would enjoy going back to just to see more of it. Because I felt like I didn't get enough time to see it all.
Right.
They have some beautiful buildings. They have some beautiful museums.
Yes, they have a very, very, very wonderful art museum.
Mm-hmm.
They also have one of the most top-notch art schools and cinema schools in the country.
Yeah.
They
have this Gehry-looking building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was called, but they again, I want to go back because it was just too short. But I thought the ambiance at night. So once we got down our hill and got back to civilization, the city was packed with young people, all the cafes and bars. There was plenty of nightlife.
Yeah.
It looks like a super friendly town, and the weather wasn't super hot, but it wasn't cold either. It was just right. It was really, really pleasant.
I mean, Lyon is, I think, a city that's in a part of the country where it actually has four seasons.
Yeah,
it can be cold there in the winter. It is really picks up a lot of stuff from the Alps. But and I do believe it actually gets really hot in the summer because it's far from the sea.
Yeah,
but it's close. It's a couple of. I mean, it's known for its art, it's known for its cinema, it's known for this light festival, and it is, of course, a huge university city.
Yes.
And it's a big city. I mean,
oh, yeah.
Not that many people. It's like all major cities. The majority of the people don't live in the city center, in the old part. So really, I remember a number of years ago, the first time I drove through it, not wanting to visit the old city center because you can drive for 45 minutes through nothing but major apartment complexes and all of these things that surround the outside of the city. And
ignore that.
It's really not very pretty, all of that. It's like the old city center is really wonderful.
And they also have raffinerie.
Yes. They have
petroleum,
connected to and all this stuff connected to the pharmaceuticals. So they've had a lot of problems with working on cleaning up the waters that dump stuff into the rivers.
Yeah.
But I know people who've studied there. I know people who teach there. I know people who work there and live there, and they all say that it's a really wonderful city to live in.
I think it would be very nice to visit. I would probably give it 3 days, maybe 4 if you can. I felt like the 2 partial days we gave it was not enough.
Yeah, I think that the city center of any major city like that, you need a good 3 days at least, to do it. Just I've noted this down. From Lyon to Paris, which is 2.5 hours on the bullet train.
Yep.
It's 460 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
From Lyon to Marseille is 320. So it's really pretty much almost, not quite, but almost halfway.
Pretty much,
from Lyon to Toulouse is 540. So it's even further away than Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And from Lyon to Geneva, only 150. which is 100 miles.
Yeah, that's really
And so
close.
it's like just about an hour, a little bit more than, once you get out of the traffic jams around the main part of the city, you really can get into the Alps very, very quickly from Lyon and the area around Lyon, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you saw it, but I remember that one of the things I love there, because that's part of the stuff I like, is that they have a lot of the remnants of the old antique Roman theater up above in the Fourvière area.
Right, in the Fourvière area. And we didn't go because, again, it was dark and we had to get down and it was late and all of that.
And it's if I remember correctly, it's not even one of those places where you have to pay. It's used like a park. I mean, there's a park surrounding it, and you can just go and sit on these grandstands, and you have a view looking west and south over the entire city, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
You know?
So I would say go visit it if you're so inclined. That it would be a fun city for Janet, for instance, who wants some nightlife and a nice downtown. Lyon definitely has a nice compact downtown.
Yes.
Of course, you can move out and see the other places. It has arrondissement just like Paris.
Yes.
Because it's big enough to have that. So it's just it's one of those French cities. It's very unlike Toulouse, but I thought it was really, really pleasant.
Not only that, but if you go to Lyon, you can include it in a trip. If you're going to go into the Alps, you can go from there into the Alps very easily.
Yeah,
you can really consider it almost like a base to go off and do a bunch of other things at the same time
nearby.
That are nearby.
Yeah,
the land. It just takes 1 hour to get across the river. You go to the Massif Central going west, and you get eventually to Saint-Étienne. It's gorgeous. If you go into the Alps, you can see them from parts of Lyon, obviously.
Chamonix is up there, up that way. Well, in that area, neighborhood.
I think Chamonix is a little bit further north, I think. But,
not sure.
But you very quickly look. It's only an hour away to Geneva, so you're already into the Alps with the lakes and things like that.
Yeah, you have Chambéry, Chamonix.
Right.
You have a lot of things like that you can do in the mountains that are not too far, And you have Bonn is not too far, which is also another place. And see, when I'm this summer, we're gonna spend 4 days in Paris, and then we need to drive south to Nîmes for a family wedding, and we need to stop a couple of places along the way. And
go to Auvergne. I think it's so gorgeous.
Auvergne,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Unless, it's just the old volcanoes, the beautiful old villages. It's really, really gorgeous. There are two cities, or I guess you could say small cities, just south of Lyon that are really worth a stop too. And one of them is Vienne.
Yes.
Which has a huge section of old Roman ruins, but it's a very beautiful little city center. And then more like a very large village that's famous because of its craftspeople, and that is a village called Pays Rouge.
Oh, yes, I've heard about that.
And beautiful, gorgeous village made out of everything out of stone, and lots of crafts. Famous for having artists and craftspeople there. And that region south of Lyon is where you get the famous poulet de Bresse.
Yes, the poulet de Bresse.
Yes.
Yes, very nice.
And the bleu de Bresse.
Which I probably would enjoy more than the fried pork fat.
Makes sense.
Oh, le friton, c'est horrible.
Well, we don't want to end with friton then.
No, we don't end with that. We can just say, if you have a chance, go. I think it's awesome.
Lugdunum,
yes. Go see some Traboul.
Go see some Traboul. Go see the Roman ruins. Have a good time.
And eat some quenelle. You'll love it. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. And au revoir.
Au revoir.
Many thanks to listeners who donate to the show or use our Amazon or hotel booking links on joinusinfrance.com or on the show notes that appear on the podcasting app on your phone. Most new listeners find the show through a recommendation from a friend. If you're the kind of fan who drops our name here and there, bless you and thank you for your help. I hope you have a great time in France, and when you come back, consider sharing your experience and thoughts with other listeners. Drop me a line, Annie@joinusinfrance.com, if you'd like to do a trip report with me. Thank you. Au revoir. This episode is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivatives International License.